Welcome to the PaynePoints Podcast. We tell the stories of small businesses, the people that run them, and the journey they are on. Our purpose is to gather a new perspective on starting, growing, maturing, and maintaining businesses of all sizes. So grab that cup of coffee, sit back, and join us as we start the conversation. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Sarah Harbuck, and in the co-host seat with me today is our producer, Megan Harbuck.
Hello.
So we have a special guest joining us from the West Coast today, another West Coaster. It's 2 weeks in a row. His name is Peter Lowe, calling us from California. Peter, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Good evening. Thank you for having me on the show.
No, thanks for being here and talking about all the things. So first, before we get into all the stuff you do, because there's a list, everybody, we want to know about you. Let's tell us about you. And you live in California. What was your family life growing up? You know, were you originally from California? Did you move there? All these little fun facts that, our listeners want to hear.
Yeah. I'm actually born out of West Philadelphia. No, Philadelphia. And I was there until I was like
So you're really the Fresh Prince.
Yeah. Then I moved to Southern California, actually, right after. So, no, I grew up largely in San Diego, so SoCal. And
nice.
Went
the
up
weather
to,
there is impeccable.
Yeah, I didn't realize that growing up. I was like, man, people come to this for vacations and vacation tourist destination stuff. I'm like, really? And then I left that. So I left San Diego and I understood why people go there for vacation. So I love that my parents are there. I can always go down for a retreat. It's always a holiday destination. But yeah, I moved up to the Silicon Valley Bay Area for college and kind of stuck around since. Now do a lot of B2B technology, public relations. So done that for a little over the past decade now.
Good deal. So you work your day job, as you will, in public relations. And then you also have a DJ business and a podcast.
Yep.
I mean, you've just got a whole calendar full of things going on. So tell us a little bit about each one of those things and, how they came to be in your life.
Yeah. Which one should I start with?
Whichever one's your favorite.
Which one started first?
Yeah, which one started first?
Chronological
that's a good
order.
bit. Yeah, there you go.
I guess I've been DJing since college.
Wow.
I started with a lot of electronic. Sorry, it is so cliche, especially nowadays. But started with electronic dance music as my beat. Did a lot of college radio around that time. Was the production director there, and from that, I just literally went into mobile DJing and club DJing. But around that time, I discovered this wonderful world of K-pop and how magical it is. And it's its own special universe. So started doing FM radio shows around K-pop and down the line started a podcast on just that topic.
Which is actually how Peter and I know each other. I am a
course.
listener of the K-pop cast.
Of course.
Yeah.
If you're a longtime listener, this is no surprise from Megan. So
This is my making the PaynePoints Podcast a K-pop podcast agenda. Peter is a part of it now. Thank you, Peter.
So you were DJing and doing all the K-pop stuff, and then you started a podcast based on that. What does your podcast cover? Is it just K-pop, or what topics within K-pop do you discuss?
Yeah, so 100% K-pop,
Okay.
but right now the direction we're taking with the show, in order to make sure that we have a consistency, I think we committed the greatest sin of all sins one can commit in podcasting, which is namely being inconsistent about your publishing schedule. So, it's really hard. I've got this day job. I've got 2 kids, and so it's hard to find a way to be consistent for the production quality that we were always shooting for a lot of our episodes. So now we're focusing on, previously we did a lot of deep dive reviews, and we did that every episode, and we balanced that with quote unquote hit replays. So just songs that we recommend that listeners check out every week. So now what we're doing is we're doing just those hit replay segments and making that a focus of the episode. And now we're adding news headlines. So we'll provide some news commentary in the world of K-pop. And we're counterbalancing that with deep investigative journalism stories. So this is stuff that I love to do concurrently while we're producing just these weekly episodes, just to make sure that we maintain that weekly cadence. So an episode I want to point to is one we did on artificial intelligence and K-pop, which is just blending both my professional life and my personal life together. So
yeah, that was super cool.
Okay, in just a few sentences, because we can all go listen to the actual episode, but how does one merge those two worlds together, I wonder?
I mean, sorry, it looks like my video disconnected here. Am I still with you? Okay, there we go.
We're still
we can see you.
Okay. There was a connection. I mean, in the world of K-pop, artificial intelligence technologies are being applied for better or for worse. So, what I've often tried doing is just bringing in subject matter experts for whatever it is within that particular subfield of K-pop or technology. And for that episode, it was finding subject matter experts for both of those things.
Okay, that's
Very
really
neat.
interesting. I'll have to check that out. When you were a little kid, did you ever think that this would be something you would be doing? Like most people when they're little, like, I'm going to be a policeman, I'm going to be a fireman, I'm going to be a doctor. What was your aspiration as a child?
I don't know. I guess maybe when I was really young, I wanted to be a scientist. My parents are researchers
Okay.
in immunology, that sort of thing. But
That's super
Oh,
cool.
wow.
yeah, they're
Really
they're
relevant
legit.
in today's times, by the way.
Yeah, actually, my dad is often quoted in the media for immunology and COVID vaccines and all that
Oh
sort
my
of stuff.
god, that's so cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
That
he
is
doesn't
awesome.
as a PR professional, he doesn't need any PR help. He's just naturally out there all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought I wanted to do that. Then I guess in college, I thought I wanted to be a lobbyist at one point.
Cool.
Found that if one wanted to be a lobbyist and make money, you had to be representing the bad guys. So I
yeah.
decided not to do that and tried going into marketing and, loosely marketing direction, because I thought if you're doing that, at least you can be transparent that you're selling something to someone.
Right.
And in that process, I discovered the practice of public relations, which turns out quite similar to lobbying in a lot of different ways, in terms of how you're appealing to influencers and you're trying to find mutual benefits. But it's a different craft.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You said you have two small, or as I say, I put the small, not sorry. You have two children.
They are small, though. Yes.
They're small. What do they want to be when they grow up? They want to be like dad? Talk on a
They're working
microphone?
on language development skills right now. So one of them is.
So they're really little.
Yes. Yeah. Well, they're little also in age and development, but also in height, because my wife and we're not tall people. So our kids are also short.
Not very
but one
tall
of them is almost 3 and another one is 6 months old. So.
Wow.
So
Super
not
dad.
yet talking.
So
Yeah.
you have your hands full in so many areas. I commend you. That's a lot to take on and do all the things you're doing currently. So, yeah, I'm guessing the future careers are not a thing they're interested in right now.
I don't think they know what jobs are yet.
No. Just that mom and dad take care of them.
Hopefully they don't know what jobs are for a long time.
Yes.
Capitalism. Anyway. Sorry, I had a point and then it flew right out of my head.
It's a Monday, and I swear it's not, if we're not recording this and having some sort of like, with our mouths or the brains, it's really not a podcast recording.
So you have all of this going on for you. You're a dad. You have a full-time job. You have a podcast. You have a wife. You have yourself to take care of. Before I continue, do you have any pets, or is that it? Am I missing anything?
Yeah, we've got, I'm looking behind me, she's floating around here, but we've got a geriatric cat who likes to vomit and poop everywhere. So
Oh no!
That's
love
where
it.
she's at right now.
So you've got a lot on your plate, and so I want to ask, what are the habits that you have to set up yourself for success every day? Like, what is your daily routine to, really psych yourself up to prepare for all of this work that you have going for you?
Calendaring is like a way of life. Just knowing that you're going to allocate X number of hours for a certain task or activity. Figured this was a good time to record a podcast. It's a rare moment where I'm the only one in the house. So it's like, okay, perfect. I don't have all these loud distractions going on behind me.
Yeah.
So doing that for everything from, I've got this many hours to dedicate to this project at work and making sure that you're realistically scoping that. For the podcast, what has also been really helpful is just knowing that every time this week we're going to record. And that's a lot less administrative back and forth in terms of figuring out, okay, we need to line up schedules differently. No, we can consistently rely on a couple of things. So that's just made workload, multitasking, and management a lot easier.
Yeah,
that's great.
I find that makes my life easier when I have it all in a calendar broken down in boxes of time and where I need to be and who I need to be talking to. So I relate so much to that.
For sure.
Who or what inspires you?
I think anyone who sparks critical thinking changes the way that you might conventionally view or think about something. A while ago, that person for me was Tim Russert, formerly of Meet the Press. Just the way this journalist would grill a lot of politicians, contemporary thinkers, speakers, and you could tell that he had done all his research on that topic and can pull out these minor things that would always make the person sweat, whoever was in the hot seat. And sorry not to be like too cliche, but I studied a lot of philosophy in college, so a lot of the Socratic thinkers, the Greek philosophers. I mean, yeah, it was a very different way of, like, you have to realize, put yourself in their day and age. Like, there's just not all this knowledge that we have today. So for them, a lot of these things that they were thinking about was groundbreaking and earth-shattering ways of perceiving and thinking.
Yeah, weren't they considered heretics or something? They were considered crazy.
Yes. Yeah, in different ways.
Usually you probably should listen to those people just in case. Do you have any kind of like fun hobbies that if you have any time, you probably don't, that you engage in when you're not working or being a dad or DJing?
Yeah. So it's definitely the podcasting, the DJing, and then I used to actually be a competitive Latin ballroom dancer. Not anymore. I'm like double the weight. Like, my wife reminds me of that all the time. She's like, "You're not the weight or physique when I met you." but
you got the dad bod going on. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. So
that is competitive ballroom dancing. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Did you? I don't know. This is not a video podcast, but like both of Mom and I's jaws just dropped. Like, that is the coolest thing that I've heard.
I have always wanted to do like professional ballroom dancing, like take lessons, like swing dance and all the different dances you can learn. And I did do some swing dance with a club at the local university. Mm-hmm. I wasn't a student there anymore. It was many years after I'd graduated, but yeah, I have always enjoyed that, but there's nowhere to do it around here. And I'm always like so fascinated when I hear somebody else has done it. I'm like, oh, what? That's so cool.
Did you ever like win any awards or anything? Like,
oh yeah. I mean, I was really serious for a while. Like,
how do you get into something like that? I mean, I've seen movies and what Hollywood has shown us, but is that actually realistic?
Any major city, there's always a dance scene. You said like, oh well, no swing dancing in my area. I don't know. It sounds like there's probably a Lindy Hop scene in your neighborhood. Honestly, if you just like type in the name of your city and Lindy Hop, I'm sure you'll get something.
So I haven't been looking hard enough, is what you're saying. Okay, yeah. Good deal.
But yeah, I think really what it requires is just time, money. It's a very expensive hobby. I had a coach at the time, was also paying for rehearsal space, and traveling for competitions, also making sure that you're paying for makeup and costumes as well. So it can be a very expensive hobby.
It
Wow.
sounds fun though.
Yeah.
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 So was your partner your wife, or was it somebody else? Your dance partner?
No, it was just someone that my coach at the time paired me with, and we had good chemistry. I think, I'll confess that sometimes I think we won less on technique and more on looks. So we had that going for us sometimes, but
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, hey, you want to have something beautiful to look at, both in the dancing technique and the people doing it. So that makes sense.
I love that.
That's great. I don't think we've ever had anybody on in the year we've done this new format. I say new, this format of interviewing, entrepreneurs and business owners, where that has been a thing that's come up. So I'm very excited that we have a new tidbit of fact from someone on the podcast as a guest.
That's good.
Latin ballroom dancing.
That is the best thing that I've heard.
Are there
all day.
videos out there of you doing it? Is there like a YouTube?
Not ones I'm proud of. So.
Oh. I was all
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna write that down. I'm gonna go look.
Well, for our K-pop people, Peter, what is your favorite song recently?
It's not super recent, but BB's She Got It, I think is the name of the title, but it's got some explicit lyrics that I'm not sure. I don't know if you want me to mention it on your podcast, but
We try to keep it family friendly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love BB. She's great.
anyway, that song is it's a dope jam. It's very catchy. It adds some very subversive commentary in terms of what she's talking about. So for your mature listeners, it's one to check out.
I know that one of the favorite things that in the K-pop community, if I can get my mouth to work correctly, is like favorite groups. So do you have a favorite group?
Don't worry, nobody's going to come after you. We
Sure,
don't have
sure.
a big enough listenership for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think ATEEZ has done a lot of really impressive things.
For real.
They've really pushed the ballot in terms of the concepts that they're delivering. I think they've got a lot of very unique vocals on that group, and I just love it whenever they go into pirate nautical themed
Yeah, same.
concepts. So right now they're on a reality survival show competition, and it's just fun watching them compete on that show as well.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's awesome.
That's great. Well, I think now we might move into the rapid fire questions. Megan, do you want to take those over?
Yes, I can. So this is the part of the show where we rapid fire questions. First thing that comes into your mind, we will ask you a series of questions, Peter, and just as quick as you can, answer them, and then we'll move into the next segment. What did you have for breakfast?
Cereal.
How do you take your coffee?
Black.
What is your favorite song right now? We already addressed that, so we can... Do you
Yeah,
have another
BB.
favorite song?
Sorry, Lovers in the Night.
Okay, great. Are you currently watching a TV show? If so, which show?
Kingdom.
Okay. What is your favorite book? That one always stumps people.
Yeah,
I don't have
probably
just
should have
one.
had an answer prepared for that. I don't know. Dune, I suppose. Good science fiction story.
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite flavor of ice cream?
Toffee coffee flavored ice cream, gelato.
Good choice. Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Sweet or salty?
Salty.
Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Zodiac sign?
We're talking about Chinese zodiac, or
We can
Either.
do both.
let's see, what am I? I'm a tiger and Libra.
Awesome.
Okay.
Love it. Spring, summer, fall, or winter?
Fall.
Introvert or extrovert?
Introvert.
Favorite color?
Gray, graphite, silver.
Okay. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
If it makes you happy, yes. Sure, whatever floats your boat.
Thanks so much, Peter. It does make me happy. Favorite social media platform?
Twitter.
Okay.
I cannot for the life of me figure out how Twitter works, honestly.
I'm kind of the same, but I'm an old fuddy-duddy, and I don't really. It's been around for a long time, but I still don't really quite understand its purpose either. But there's a lot of people who are, oh, I love Twitter. I get my news, and okay. I don't know how.
I'm literally our social media person, and I still don't really understand how to make it work.
I like pretty things. That's why I link Instagram. So I just scroll through pretty pictures, See,
I think the trick for Twitter, depending on your audience, pretty pictures there similarly applies, because the pictures occupy more of the news feed or your Twitter stream and feed. So that'll make people stop and stare and increase the likelihood that they'll click. Yeah. Yep.
Gotcha. Well, speaking of attention grabbing, your day job is in PR, and why don't you kind of tell everybody, because I think sometimes people get confused as to what PR is versus like media relations and things like that. So kind of let's go over that a little bit.
For sure. I mean, this is the thing that I come back home to family and they're like, what do you do? Like,
right.
Are you sure you're not just like a drug dealer? Is that what you're telling me? Like, no, I swear it's a legitimate job. So yeah, it's, how can I explain it? Like whenever you see something in the news or you read a news article, it's about making sure your client or yourself or your company or whatever it is that you're representing is in the story itself. It's just a way to make sure that you're getting out there, that people are talking about you or with you, or you're joining conversations. And if you look at like the marketing communications landscape, it's everything earned media. So it's through building a lot of trust, a lot of relationships, so that people know to call on you for being a subject matter and whatever it is that you want to be known on or known about. It's about having an opinion on something and using that to weigh in on topics that you care about that's relevant to your company or your business. So to provide like another analogy, if you were like to look at a website, maybe you'll see banners on the side of that web page, and those are advertisements. And within an advertisement, you can create whatever reality you want because you own that space. You bought it. It's very expensive. But I'll ask you this, like who pays attention to that versus the story itself? So in terms of like where your return on investment for your marketing spend, I find public relations, everything earned media, a lot more pragmatic, more often than not. Sure, advertising has a place, but most people tune out advertising in a ways that they wouldn't tune out public relations. It's also, yes, you mentioned media relations. It's also a lot of the crisis communications, like, oh crap, we just had this crisis, or this executive just did this horrible thing, or we need to recall this product. It's making sure that you're accurately conveying whatever information it is related to that. I certainly had my experience going through a lot of crisis communications. One thing that a couple jobs ago was working with John McAfee and all the crazy shenanigans he was up to after he left the company. So that was a really fun experience.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. PR, when I was in school back in the 90s in college, they didn't have a focused degree on photography like I wanted. So I had to take like mass communications, and I had a whole section on public relations. And what stuck with me about that was it was almost like it's like your own in-house cheerleading squad in a way. And I don't mean to belittle your job by saying it or comparing it that way, but it's more of a, hey, these are the people who are going to put our company's name out there and try to do so in the most positive way possible. And if bad things come along, they're going to, handle them with care and thoughtfulness. And yeah, maybe they're going to try to spin it a little bit to be better than it is, just, to kind of put the damper on the fire that's going on. But they're like the internal company's safety blanket and cheerleaders. Like let's get the name out there, but also protect them from the things that might be damaging in the long run. So maybe perhaps 25 years ago that's what it was, and it's different today. But does that seem like a somewhat fair assessment, or is it a little bit different in today's time?
Sure. I think maybe the nuance I'd provide is not necessarily to be the cheerleader, but a way to control the story.
Okay.
In the way that you want it. So it doesn't always have to be rainbows and sunshine.
Sure.
Sometimes it could be for something that you want to get a lot of attention on that isn't always a good thing.
Right.
And you're not always going from a thing, you're not always talking about your client or your company or business from a point of view of, we are the best, always pay attention to me. It's much like, well, here's how the conversation should be framed.
Yeah.
And a lot of the strategy of public relations is figuring out what combination of ingredients do I want to get out there, when and how, to kind of control the story.
Yeah, it has changed a little bit then, because could have been just that I didn't take enough classes in it. That was my impression when I walked away from it. So yeah, I like that. I mean, in a sense, every company is going to want to do that and control the aspects of news that comes in and out about them. So I like the way.
Or their competitors.
Or their competitors. Yeah, sure thing. I mean, if anything we see is usually there's a PR team behind it. When it comes to.
Yeah,
there should be.
I mean, that's just the way with many things in life. Like you learn how the sausage is made, and then you realize like, oh, that actually wasn't as organic as I thought it actually was. It's like, oh, really? This is actually all staged. This is all pre-scripted. And I'm not saying that happens all the time in public relations, but just a lot of aspects of the story, you, as a PR professional, you start to recognize like, oh, I know they approached this journalist in this way. They pulled these people into it. That's why this person was quoted and featured in this way. So you start to see how those things were organized. And, I think you're talking about how the practice has changed over the years. I think the underlying philosophy, strategy has remained the same. But I guess what has really been different is the diminishing traditional media landscape that's just getting smaller and smaller. And so what is taking its place is just everything digital. So using a lot of influencers on social in lieu of journalists, or not relying as much on traditional publishers and making the company itself become a publisher.
Yeah. When you were in college, would you go to school specifically for public relations, or did your degree kind of morph into this career for you?
No. I studied philosophy and political science. Like that's not at all related. Well, I suppose it could be, but like.
Yeah, I was about to say there's definitely a way that it circles back around.
I think politics and PR are very closely tied together.
So what is your degree in specifically, if you don't mind me asking?
Philosophy and political science.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Science. But I mean, it's not like the world is made of cheese, and that has taught me something, from these metaphysical philosophy discussions, that how to pitch a journalist. Like, it doesn't have that linear one-to-one mapping.
Yeah.
But if anything, if I can give a pitch, to people, considering an undergraduate degree, it's all about critical thinking and again, like the state of the art of public relations in terms of the tactics. Maybe I pitch people via email, via phone, or via Twitter DM. Maybe that changes, but the baseline platform for thinking and thinking about what's a cool story, ways that maybe an argument might be refuted, like that's like a skill set in critical thinking, as one would have, like a ballroom dancer would have in learning timing, or just having a sense of like more fundamental concepts to later do more downstream professional.
I feel like both of those subjects would serve you well in this career, quite honestly, because it's kind of like taking both halves of the brain and like putting them together and utilizing them in your job. You have the philosophy side, but then you have the real political science background, which involves a lot of the same sort of strategies, I feel like. So, yeah, I think your degree is actually very tied to your job.
Yeah.
From my
there
perspective.
are people that do vocational training for public relations. So I know San Jose State, for example, has a PR program.
Yeah.
So what was the first step, since your degree isn't in PR, what was the first step into getting into that industry for you?
Well, as I mentioned, at one point I thought I wanted to be a lobbyist. And in going through that change and trying to do something #marketing, I just started looking around for like, hey, I'm still in college. What sort of slave labor intern experience can I get? And just talking to people, just relying on one's network. Hey, do you know someone that works in marketing? Just asking around, connection by connection. I got introduced to someone who was on my salsa dance team at the time, and she worked in public relations, and she started talking about her work and her career, and I said, hey, that sounds cool. Sign me up. Where can I volunteer my grunt work and whatnot? And that's how I learned a lot of the baseline ways the trade works. And then I completed my degree, and I just went to my career center at the time, asked them just bluntly, how do I break into this? I don't have a degree in this. Like, how can I enter into this field? And one thing that they advised that led to my first real 401k paying job was join trade associations. And so I joined the Public Relations Society of America, and through that, I went to a networking event where I met a lot of great people from that very first networking event I went to, and got introduced to my employer through that event. So that's how I broke into it.
Networking is everything these days. It's about who you know, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that. And it was like you used LinkedIn before LinkedIn.
I mean, I will say, literally, what was it? 2008, we met Michael Payne, right? Was it 2008 or 2009?
2008.
And he is our boss now, and I met him when I was 8 years old. Now I'm 21, and I work for him full-time as his media producer. So it really is interesting to see how those things work in our lives, how, inconsequential meetings can turn into, full-time careers. I think that's really, really fascinating.
Well, before we jump into the DJing thing, because I definitely want to get into that.
Sure.
Real quickly, when it comes to PR, well, not real quickly, but however long it takes you, I would imagine there's some challenging things that come with that job that, would make it difficult or stressful. And is there anything you could share, or how you overcome those times where you've got an issue that's come up and you're really stuck on it? How do you move through it, and how do you get the best outcome for the company you represent, but and still keep your morals about you?
Totally. Well, I think many PR pros, a frequent challenge that they're put in is that they have to just be available 24/7. Media cycles never sleep, especially now that everything is digital. You can publish something instantaneously. I think maybe in the 90s you can get away with, okay, well, we're going to file this story, on Friday, maybe it'll publish on Monday or Tuesday.
Yep.
No, it's like, great, I've got the scoop. I need to publish it in the next 5 minutes.
Yep.
So, because media are similarly challenged with trying to be first more than anything else, because that's the way they're going to get the most impressions. And so similarly on the PR front, you have to be equally as agile and nimble to respond to whatever happens the moment it happens, and to quickly assess the situation and execute on a plan right then and there. So I think that's been a challenge. I guess for people who are in agency life, so if you're at a PR agency representing a lot of different companies or clients at once, sometimes a challenge that they can be thrown into is a client who has very unrealistic expectations for what makes a good story or something that they want to announce or do that they think is newsworthy. I think the natural position that many PR pros have is just to entertain that vanity and kind of go along with it, but it just kind of sets them up for failure downstream. They waste journalists' time, they waste their own time, and they just have a very unhappy client in the end. So just another thing I would just advise to another hard part of the job, and one thing I just advise to everyone in the business, is just be real with your client. Like, you know what's going to sell, what's not, and tell them that, and use that as a point to figure out, well, what could we do that's worth talking about, or what can we do to go back to the drawing board to make sure that our expectations are in check. One thing that I recently went through that was like for sure a career highlight was being caught in between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
So this is when I was at the Partnership on AI, a nonprofit consortium devoted to the responsible development of AI technologies. And on one hand, our executive sponsor, one of our executive sponsors, was Google. And on the other hand, someone who we worked with quite a bit at Google was this well-known responsible AI research, Timmy Gabriel. If you look up her name, you just do Google search for her, you can see all the news headlines out around her. And it was great that I got to, work virtually alongside her. But the big problem was Google, for all intents and purposes, basically fired her in a very unsavory way. And this is someone who we work with a lot, whose work was very centered in our mission at the nonprofit. And we have the other person who's responsible for firing her, who's paying our checks.
Yes.
So if we're a nonprofit who's focused on the fair and responsible development of artificial intelligence technologies, you can't just ignore this, because the firing of this responsible AI researcher was a very non-responsible thing to do.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of people blowing up at us like, hey, Partnership on AI, why aren't you going to do something about this? Like, where do you stand on this issue? Are you just a fig leaf to legitimize big tech and do ethics washing around all their initiatives? And so in that moment, as a PR pro does, you're trying to figure out, well, what are we going to say? What are we going to do around this? And one thing for sure that we did not want to do is get caught up in the legal details of like, okay, this person was fired or not, or in what way they were fired, because frankly, we just didn't know those details. But at the same time, you need to reaffirm your values, and you also need to not alienate this very important business relationship that you have. So in that moment, I challenged the organization, like, hey, we have to say something. I think it was the position at the time of the organization to, one, not say something, but also two, say their initial thought was to do, I think you raised a point earlier, just to be like, no, let's just be a cheerleader for how great we are. In that instance, that would be totally tone deaf, not recognizing what the dynamics of that issue were, and could blow back on us even further. They wanted to say, well, yeah, here at PAI, we believe in our values, and that's why we're doing all these other things related to this work that this former researcher was doing. Like, no, that is totally tone deaf, make us sound and look really bad. So instead, what I had us do is craft a statement on if we're to have responsible AI, it means that we need to be able to voice concerns without ramifications, without retaliatory impact, and that we stand by this person, and we stay committed to this line of research with Google and others. And so we put out that statement. And that was like for sure a career highlight. Made me feel really good that we put that out. I learned later down the line that a reporter was actually working on a hit piece against the company at that time, the nonprofit at that time, through sources that I heard a few months after that he was speaking to. But after we put out that statement, he said, "Whoa, look at what this nonprofit just did." And it completely flipped, any plans that he had to do a hit piece against us at that time.
Kudos to you. That's incredible.
I think you just cemented why you have your job.
Yeah, for real. That's super cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guessing that ties into the very next question I had. What's the most satisfying thing? And I'm guessing whenever you can walk that line of doing the most, the ethical, moral thing, but also serving the needs of your client. And sometimes that, for some people, they think, well, that means doing the absolute best thing for them. But sometimes it's like you were just saying in that story, you come up with a statement that, acknowledges what happened and tone down the, maybe severity. And at the same time, still go, hey, we had to say something about this. So, covered all your bases. I'm guessing that would be I did all the things, even though I was stuck between these two really different positions. I would find that very rewarding. Maybe there's something else about your career that is more the pinnacle.
I think if you speak to a lot of public relations professionals, maybe something that they would often bring up is they just love getting coverage. So they just love getting their work out there, just seeing it being discussed and being the center of attention, frankly, and like the national discourse.
Yeah.
But going back to, Tim Russer, the way this journalist was able to get people to think about things differently, that's what's most rewarding for me. So whatever it is on a topic in artificial intelligence, or hell, even in K-pop, if it's like, let's look at this thing in K-pop, but actually we need to think about it differently. That's the most rewarding part of it, getting people to go through their own internal paradigm shift.
Good deal.
I love that. I want to ask, what has working in PR taught you about yourself?
He's like, how much time do you have?
I suppose an area of growth for myself is I naturally want to make everyone happy, but I've learned that you gotta speak up and do the right thing. You gotta call out where there are moves that are non-strategic or are just a waste of time given whatever business goals that you have. So that's something I've learned about it myself and have been professionally working on myself to do better.
That's great. Thank you.
Well, I want to shift gears just a little bit, although I find that world very fascinating. You have another part of your life that is a big part of it, and that is that you are a part-time DJ and podcaster. You got your start with the DJing in college, you said, and you did the EDM and electronic stuff. Did you just do like frat parties and college, mixers and things like that, or were you hired out for bar mitzvahs and weddings and birthday parties?
Yeah, in college it was like whatever I could get. I mean, if it was a frat party or a much more casual, toned down version of that hey, 5 people are coming over. Okay, great. Let me get use that as an excuse to play some music at this party. I was on every opportunity. I think whether my friends asked for it or not, I was volunteering and just showing up and setting it up.
What kind of DJ were you? Were you like, had the big old spread and all the things, or were you much more like digital based with a laptop and a sound system? Like,
I started DJing right as there's this trend of like controllerism. So right as these hardware appliances that you plug into your computer were really starting to become popular.
Yeah.
So I started using what at the time was a quote unquote modular setup where I had like lots of little ones that I would kind of like, configure and piecemeal together just for my purpose built applications in style of DJing. So I did that. I since strayed away from that just because I didn't like carrying so many cords and having a long set down time. So now I'm just like a one controller guy. So I just use like one main piece of equipment that I roll up with. But if you want to do club DJing, especially in America, like, there's really like 1.5 standards. Like the number one standard is like, you just need to use CDJs because that's what they have in virtually every club in America. And you're expected to work with that. You show up with your USB thumb drive and you just plug that in and you mix music through that. It's just easier for the promoter and the club that way. And then I think for a while, Serato was really still popular, but it was a laptop way of using your laptop and then plugging into the CDJ system. But I guess I'm more of I guess what old school DJs would pejoratively call a microwave DJ. So someone who uses just a lot of technology.
Good. So it's eating me up inside because before I had K-pop, I had EDM. And I was huge. Mom can remember this. I was huge into Daft Punk and Skrillex and Deadmau5 and Diplo and Dylan Francis. I know Dylan's a little bit newer, but are those names? Are those?
Oh yeah, of course,
okay,
all
great.
of the above. Yeah.
Okay, great. Because that totally we're best friends then, Peter. Because we're totally aligned in our music tastes. That's awesome. That's really exciting. So you still do it now, even. I mean, obviously, we've had a pandemic for the past year and a half, but do you plan on going back to doing any kind of gigs like that when, COVID is not?
Yeah, I certainly hope to. I mean, for a while, right before COVID, I had a recurring gig where I did these K-pop parties here in the San Francisco Bay Area, which it was really fun because actually, more specifically, yes, I would do every once in a while. I did one that was more mainstream K-pop. That was called K-pop Night, and then I did another one that was with drag queens and K-pop, and that was like these, one might think are disparate communities, but they came together so harmoniously, and it was always really fun being a part of both those different communities. So I can get away with playing a lot of Aegyo stuff. In other words, really cute K-pop, cotton candy, rainbow, unicorn music shoved down your ear sort of music for those events. You can't play that anywhere else. So that was really fun. But even now I do virtual events. So not too long ago, I did an event with Hyolyn, who is this like summer themed K-pop idol. And I've got another one this summer that I will share more when that announcement goes out.
Okay. That is so exciting. And I completely missed the Hyolyn thing. I feel like a fake DJ Peter Lowe fan for not knowing about that. How was that? Was that fun?
Yeah, it was. I mean, like, as best as one can have a virtual festival, it was just designed in the manner of like having like a Coachella sort of thing, many multiple stages, and so I was a part of that. But it was great to be on the virtual stage with her and hearing a lot of her music and her live performances.
Was it nerve-wracking? Because see, I've before the pandemic, I used to volunteer for K-pop concerts, and even though we weren't really allowed to like be around the idols, it was always nerve-wracking. So was it like kind of nerve-wracking for you to like or are you an actual adult who like doesn't get nervous about that stuff?
You should really ask other K-pop journalists like how they do it, but for sure, like on the inside, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like, this major idol that I worship. But
yeah,
when you're in a professional environment with them, it's just like, I put my brain and my character into a different place, and it's like, well, this is my client or this is my colleague, and that's how I'm going to engage with them. So
that's exactly what Natalie Marin said.
Oh yeah, there you go.
From Refinery 29. When she was saying something very similar. And that is so neat. I am looking forward to the day that is me.
I have a question for you, Peter, and maybe it's just me, because one of my favorite movies used to be High Fidelity. I don't know if you've ever seen it, a John Cusack movie. No?
I'm trying to remember. I mean, I've heard of it, but I'm trying to remember if I've seen it.
Okay. Well, the movie revolves around music completely, and it's the top 5 this and top 5 that, songs for this particular, situation in your life. And they even DJ'd some of the people that worked in this record store DJ'd, and the way they would come about making these playlists, and the rules that he had for making a playlist to play when he was DJing a club or a party or whatever. And so I'm wondering, what was your process to, because like I know you're usually in the K-pop genre or the EDM genre, but say you got booked to do something that wanted you to play like top 40 hits. Exactly how does one go about putting together a playlist, so that we can try to relate to everybody listening, to make it fun and to kind of encompass all the moods? How does one do that? Because I would probably just put all of my favorites on there and forget about some of the others.
Yeah, that's a great question.
So how did you do that? How do you go about, creating these playlists to, really set the mood for whatever event you're doing?
I should add that I also did a lot of top 40 hip hop, so I already have that experience under my belt as well. And you have to do that as a mobile DJ. I'll add, but look, if you're building out a set beginning to end before you even arrive at the venue, you're not DJing. In my humble opinion, you're playlisting, and that's not the art of DJing. The art of DJing is having a two-way interaction with the audience, with the crowd. You're trying to figure out, like, you look at your songs as like a set of ingredients, and you're trying to figure out, okay, this song is going to introduce this emotion or this vibe onto the floor. Given where they're at right now, and given what they seem to be responding to, where do I take them next? And so you look at your portfolio of all your ingredients, and then you start segmenting that in a give and take fashion. You see them really respond to ratchet hell hyphy Bay Area music. You're like, okay, I guess it's that kind of crowd. Like I'm gonna maybe go a little bit more in that direction. Maybe you can upset that. It's a very risky thing sometimes where, for example, I was at this, I was reaching for this one anime convention, and I'm doing a lot of turned up EDM bangers. And then I said, you know what, screw it. I'm going to do a real gamble here just to make myself more memorable and more stand out as a DJ, because it's very easy. I think, especially for a lot of EDM top 40 festival DJs, you just stick with what's safe. You're like, well, I know, these are the top 40 songs. Those are the 40 songs in my set. Because everyone loves them, because they're popular by definition. So if you really want to change things up, you figure out, like, okay, what are like the 5% of my overall set that I'm going to be giving that is just really out there, that I want to introduce to them, that I want to take them to this different place. So at this anime convention, I decided, you know what? I'm going to play some Red Hot Chili Peppers. I'm going to introduce the chorus of this throwback song.
That's awesome.
I played it, and it went over well. It went over so well. I mean, kids these days, they don't have lighters, but what they do have are mobile phones. So what they started actually doing, without my prompting, they all started raising their phones and turning on the LED light on their phones, and they all started waving that. And I was like, okay, I nailed it. Like, that was a moment where
Red Hot Chili Peppers is classic, so of course they were gonna love it.
Yeah.
I love that. That is so cool.
I do like that you're one of those that kind of makes your playlist on the fly and with the mood of the room. I used to be a professional wedding photographer, and I worked with a lot of the DJs at a lot of the weddings, kind of coordinating the reception in terms of, hey, will you announce we're about to cut the cake, and we're going to take pictures, or do this or that. And so one of the DJs I used to work with a lot here in the area, he would do his stuff on the fly sometimes. And sometimes he would have a list he'd worked off of. But there would people come up and, hey, would you play this song? Because my grandparents danced to it at their wedding. And he would have to do if he didn't have it in his library, quick search,
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed working with him because he kind of molded to whatever was needed in whichever event we were at. And yeah, he had a system. And I love that he would take charge, but he wasn't like so over the top. Some events that I would go to where the DJ is just like, and you're like, ooh, you got a little too much personality. You might want to tone it down a bit. So I liked hearing that you kind of built it on the fly and would read the room, mood of the room, and also create the mood in the room.
That's really what it's about. Yeah, you're creating the mood. It's not like you shouldn't go into 100% reactive.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, to the point that, like, it's not like I did I just like rolled up with no prep whatsoever. No, like I would like kind of research like, okay, what is the age range of the guests? Therefore, I need to make sure that these decades are represented in my library, that I got them ready to show. Or like, I know these are must plays by the bride and groom. I am required to play these before this point in the night. So, you know, you create what a lot of DJs do. They do this thing known as like crating.
Sure.
That's where you're familiar.
Yeah,
But-
yeah. It was more of a, you know, you have a general, you know, you have these certain lists of songs, but then nothing's in a particular order per se. Okay, we know for sure we're playing this song during this event, but then everything else, he would kind of, all right, well, it seems like everybody's in a dancing mood, so we're going to play a lot of the dancing songs right now, and then would tone it down when people would go have dessert or
your slow songs or whatever.
Yeah, like, you know, up and down as the night, you know, wore on. And I you know, the best parties I've ever been to were the ones that had a really great DJ or even a live music setup. You know, a bad DJ can really ruin the party. I've been to quite a few of those events too. So yeah, it's got to be an interesting position to be in when you're kind of not the sole responsible person for the mood of the party, but in a way there's a lot riding on your shoulders to be like, I want them to walk away from here having the best fun of their life, you know, up to this point, you know? So I'm sure that's crazy. What's the craziest song request you've ever gotten?
I mean, there's annoying things where like people will request a song. It's like, I just played that song like 5 minutes ago. Where were you for that? They're like,
I wasn't
there. Can you play it again? I'm like, no, I'm not going to subject that to everyone on the dance floor. Like you just had to have been there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess maybe it's usually a combination of just like someone asking for something that's like highly inappropriate for the venue or the crowd.
Yeah,
or
I
like
imagine.
just, hey, play some R. Kelly songs. I'm like,
This is a 13-year-old's birthday party.
yeah.
No.
Right.
Yeah, some people don't. Yeah. That was.
You keep going back to bar mitzvahs.
I don't know
They're on my
why.
mind.
I'm not Jewish, so I don't know why. But yeah, that's.
You
that's a
mentioned
big thing.
13-year-old birthday party, and I was like, that's a bar mitzvah.
Oh, I get. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, my brain is apparently stuck on that tonight. I don't know. I'm sorry, Peter.
You're good. It's a common mobile DJ type of gig.
I mean, it's like a wedding. It happens, you know, in that community.
Yeah.
It's a very big deal. So, or a quinceañera, you know, we can go that direction if you want. Those are some crazy parties too.
Yeah.
What was your most fun event that you've ever done?
Hyolan is listening to this podcast. She'll know.
With
Yeah,
the
that was a
exception
fun
of that one, you know, because obviously, you know, that was great. But
I think it was just a random K-pop night I had in San Francisco. It was just one where it was so packed, like there was barely room to move. Like it was just that popular of a night, and I would be playing songs, and then you've really got it where you're able to just like, okay, everyone's singing along, they're all doing the fan chants to the songs, and I'm just gonna cut the volume and let them sing it out. And like just doing that was just really fun. So having a lot of that, and we also I was involved in the promotion of that event, so I also invited a lot of Bay Area dance teams to perform. So it's just really, just building community. So it's like, you're with a party with a bunch of your friends. Oh, the other big thing about it was that if you're going to like a K-pop club night, everyone, by law, like if you're serving alcohol, everyone has to be over 21 for that event. That therefore means that you're speaking to K-pop fans of a certain generation.
Oh,
and
yeah.
These K-pop fans all really dig Gen 2 K-pop. So I was able to play 2NE1, Big Bang, and just hearing them singing along to those songs, doing the fan chants for those songs was just very unique and special.
That's awesome.
Cool.
I cannot wait. My friend, I just turned 21 in December. My friend has told me about K-pop night at the clubs, and once, a couple years down the line, once people are vaccinated and COVID is a thing of the past, I am so excited for that. I'm not a drinker, but I just like to have fun, and that sounds like a ton of fun.
I like dancing, so any kind of thing where there's some dance music to dance around to. That's my scene for sure. Would you have any advice for somebody wanting to get into the DJ scene that you wish you had when you were starting out?
I mean, one thing I just advise to all DJs is like it really doesn't matter what type of gear you have, and I say that as someone who's like very progressive in like the state of the art technology that I use, but
you didn't start there, you grew to that, so
sure. Like you could DJ with just your laptop alone and you can have like a hella rockin' party with that, so like don't worry too much about the hardware peripherals that you're using. Sorry, this is more of a technical thing, but this is the advice I'd really give to my younger self.
Yeah,
is like,
sure.
Quick mix it. Like, I think now I get accused of doing too much quick mixing, but it's this technique of like, hey, just play the chorus and then you're out onto the next song. That's something, especially in top 40 and hip hop, that you really need to do and perfect. And it's really easy to do it. So especially with today's free baseline offerings, this is an easy ability to do. And then you long play it if you see the crowd is really responding to the song. But
yeah,
you should go into the assumption just knowing that you're probably going to play the first verse, maybe the first or possibly the second chorus, but then you're out. So
yeah. There's an art to it, I feel like, to knowing how to blend songs together in and out, and to go, okay, this song's not really playing, so I'm going to fade it out and bring this one up. And people just think it's just, setting a playlist and playing and that you're a DJ. And that's, I think there's so much more to it than that. And so I've really appreciated you being able to kind of say, hey, this profession requires some skills, some things that, you might not have thought. What does the future hold for you, Peter Lowe, in all of your endeavors? You've got your podcast, so I'm guessing you're going to keep chugging on with that. Any cool guests or events coming up with that you can share, or just we keep an eye out for what might be announcements coming up? Anything fun there? Yeah,
certainly. Just doing more of the podcasting. I just got a video from an artist that we're having a brief. So we've been doing these, again, quote unquote hit replays where we introduce songs. So next week we're going to actually have the artists themselves introduce a song. So stay tuned for that. We're looking to do more of those with more artists in the K-pop community.
Good deal. Well, tell everybody where they can find you on social media so they can look up your podcast and maybe hire your DJ services or any of the, or just your personal accounts if you'd rather. So yeah, lay it on us.
Yeah, you can find me at DJ Peter Lowe on Twitter. That's probably the best place for all of the above. Actually, if you want to care about artificial intelligence, tech, that sort of thing, my alter ego, actually my DJ is really my alter ego. My more professional self is Peter Lowe PR on Twitter. So you can find that more professional facing version of myself.
And tell us again, remind us what the name of your podcast is.
K-pop Cast.
K-pop Cast. And you can listen to it anywhere podcast or broadcast, correct?
Including video. So we're starting to do YouTube for our podcast as well.
Good deal. Well, Peter, thanks so much for taking time to sit down and chat with us tonight. And I know you got to get back into family stuff here in just a bit.
Got to make dinner now.
Yeah. I didn't want to take up any more of your time, but it's been real fascinating talking to you. And we really appreciate you offering insight into a couple of professions that we haven't even had a guest on for this podcast yet. So yeah, that's great. I love covering all the bases, and you provided us with a lot of thoughtful insights tonight. So yeah.
Thanks so much. It was great to meet you.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you both. I was listening to a few of your past episodes, so I'll continue listening in the future. So I wish all the best for PaynePoints.
Oh, well,
thanks
thank
so much.
you. Awesome. Well, have a great night out there in California. And to all of our listeners, we will catch you on the next episode. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Do you have a story to tell? We want to hear it. If you'd like to be a guest on our podcast and share your story, contact us on our website at PaynePoints.com or any of the social media linked on our website. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on either Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. We'd appreciate a review, a like, or a comment to let us know what you think. You can find all of our podcasts linked on our website under the podcast tab. Once again, thanks for joining us, and we want to wish everybody a wonderful day.